So I saw this article the other day. I've made it pretty clear that I'm excited about these new Qualcomm chips. I hate that we're being held in suspense. Like I want these things to be released today, but of course we gotta wait. I think next week or the following week, Microsoft will be having an event slash something else, and I think they're going to announce slash release some Surface products that contain these Qualcomm chips. So we'll see what happens. Um, Again, I think I keep repeating it. I'm excited. But I saw this article and I agree with some of what it has to say, but then disagree with other parts of it. And I think the message that I want to convey to consumers and to the industry at large is that we need to temper our expectations. Yes, it's only natural to compare these chips to Apple Silicon. However, keep in mind that Apple Silicon is now on its fourth iteration of the M series chips, which were built off of the A series chips, which Apple, I think, has the A17 Pro in their iPhone. So Apple's been doing it for a while. And even though Qualcomm has been making chips for cell phones, in terms of now a laptop slash desktop quality chip, this will be their first one. So I think we need to temper our expectations. And for me, if these chips are comparable to Apple's M1 chips, then I think we have a win. And we have something that will get better as time goes on. And then we can start trying to draw those more in depth, more, optimal comparisons in the future as Qualcomm releases these. We see what they really are. And then hopefully they build on those. And then we say, okay, now Qualcomm's been doing this for years. How do these things compare to the direct competition? So that's that. Other thing that I wanted to say before I forget is if these chips are good, I think Apple will reactivate. That's the only way I can really say it. I know I'm saying it wrong, but reactivate or reintegrate Boot Camp back into Mac OS, because if you do that, and yeah, you can see everything that's on my screen right now. It's still in Mac OS, but it says this Mac does not support Boot Camp. So I feel like Apple can make it so that these Apple Silicon Macs support Boot Camp because it's still there. And I feel like if these chips are good and Apple realizes that people now will continue to buy Windows laptops and get all the same benefits that Apple Silicon provides, they're going to need something to bring people to the Mac. And it's okay, I know you like Windows, but our hardware is still really good and you can run Windows. So don't think that you have to make, that choice over there. So that's my short-term strategy. Like, it wouldn't surprise me if either WWDC or when the M4 MacBooks are released, Apple says, you know what? Now you can go back to using Boot Camp again, and you can just, natively run Windows on it because Windows for ARM or on ARM is an actual thing now. But not going to drone too much on that. Let's get to these 5 things, a few of which I completely agree with, and a few of which I'm just like, not so much. So the first 2 are sustained performance and low power consumption. Can I get that out of the way? Yeah. And those go hand in hand, that we need it to be able to actually do something, and we need it to not have the battery die when it does that thing. And that was the beauty of Apple Silicon. You had the power, but you also had the efficiency. Yes, I can go get a Intel 14th gen i9 whatever and can, have some type of dedicated graphics, and we can crank out a bunch of stuff fast. But then that battery dies and you're like, well, thanks, but I need something that I don't have to either keep plugged in or something that isn't going to require me to charge the battery every hour and a half. So those 2 things go hand in hand. And for the most part, those are the real 2 things that I agree with, that these 2 things need to be true. And I said it before, and I'll reiterate it, that if these Qualcomm chips are on par with the M1 series of chips, we have a win. So make sure we temper our expectations. The next, can I get 2 more things? No. So the next 2 things, and I'll just say them both, a killer NPU, so neural processing unit, and powerful graphics capability, so a powerful GPU. While I agree that both of those things will be nice. This is Qualcomm's first real shot at this. The last ARM chip that they put in some laptops, the 8CX Gen 3 or something, it was terrible. I used one. I had the ThinkPad X13S. It was just bad. And I wanted to like it because I like Windows better than Mac OS. But at that time, I had that laptop and I had my M1 MacBook. And I said, this MacBook is just better in every way. So I can't, for the life of me, keep this Lenovo ThinkPad. So I got rid of it. So since this is kind of a new thing for Qualcomm, we need these things to exist because, even I agree that AI is here to stay, but we don't need them to be superb or stupendous on the first iteration. We don't need to set these expectations way up here, knowing that this is their first shot at it. And in terms of an NPU, I'd like to remind you that while it is good to be able to do a lot of this AI stuff and other things that take advantage of an NPU, it's good to do those things locally. Even with other companies that are doing things in their second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever iteration, they still recognize that sometimes it's better to send those requests off to a data center somewhere and use their NPUs and their supercomputers. So let's temper our expectations. Yes, hope for something good, but I feel like we don't need to expect absolutely amazing for an NPU or for a GPU. They need to be good and need to get better over time, but let's not assume that let's not expect that either one of these two pieces of hardware need to be great on day one. Still need to be good, but not great. And the last thing is industry-wide support. While I feel like that is true, I also want to make it known that what Apple did was the best way to do it. We're not going to go back to PowerPC days because there were some compatibility issues with that. And then they switched to Intel, and then things I think seem to work out a little bit better. And then they switched to Apple Silicon, which instead of Apple just saying, "Well, here's a computer, you guys figure out how to make it, how you want to use it. You start writing software so that it runs natively on it." They created Rosetta, and then now Rosetta 2 that acted as a translation layer, and that allowed you, me, whoever, to run those x86 programs, have that code quickly and efficiently translated to then run on that Apple Silicon. And it was almost like a seamless thing. Like, it was great. So kudos to Apple for doing that. And that's all that needs to happen here. And I don't know if that's a Qualcomm responsibility or if that's a Microsoft responsibility. Because with Apple, they have Mac OS and it's Apple Silicon. So the company did, the entire thing. For this one, I'm not sure whose responsibility it would be. Probably Microsoft would be my guess, but I don't know. But I don't think on day one we need industry-wide support. Over time, as long as people buy the computers, then the industry should adopt it. And the best way to get people to buy the computers is for them to be able to run the software they currently use on their current computers on these new computers. And I believe the best way to accomplish that is what Apple did, is to have that translation layer so that things run almost without any degradation in performance. Also, and I think this is something that needs to be known as well, if I believe I'm correct in saying this, that a lot of the applications that we are using now really are just web apps, and a lot of the stuff that actually happens doesn't happen on the machine anyway. So if somebody were to write a web app, then it's like, does it really matter what piece of hardware it's running on? To an extent, I know that does, to an extent. But in terms of everything else that's been listed in this article, for the three that I really didn't agree completely with, if everything's running in a cloud or remotely, do you need a great NPU or a great GPU? Or, yeah, as long as the operating system runs on your piece of hardware, does anybody else really need to? Because if, for instance, Google Chrome, which they have recently released their ARM version of Chrome, Google has, does it really matter what else is happening underneath that as long as Chrome supports it? So I know I'm not completely correct in all of what I said, but I think my message is coming across. All right, cool. Now, the last thing that I wanted to share is why I was actually super excited, is because I agree with part of this article and other parts of it I don't. But what I was always concerned about is what devices are these chips going to be in? Now, the one thing. Now, yesterday, I was super excited to see this article, Gaze Upon Dell's Elite Qualcomm X Elite Powered Laptops. And we come down here. So I already knew about the Dell Inspiron 14, and I already knew that I was not going to buy that. But what I did not know until yesterday was this Dell XPS 9345. I want it. Very rarely do I actually, like, on day one, like the moment I see that I want it or say that I want it. But no, I want that. That is, I want to say, close to the epitome. Am I saying that correct? Maybe I am. The pinnacle. I'll say that is the pinnacle of what my concern was, is that these chips were going to be put in the company's crap laptops kind of as a test. But here, that XPS line is great, man. And when I've owned XPSs, I've had, my various complaints, concerns, whatever, but also a lot of positives. And if Dell is actually putting this Qualcomm chip in that XPS 13, that thing should be amazing. Should have a great keyboard, great trackpad, great screen, good speakers, and then now powered by this Qualcomm chip. Amazing battery life. Is it going to have a fan? Don't know. But if it does have a fan, hopefully the chips are efficient enough that the fan almost never kicks up. So we'll find out. But there are other laptops here that we kind of know about, like the Lenovo Yogo Slim 714, whatever. And yeah, I'll probably check that one out as well. But I think if I could summarize all this, the Qualcomm chips need to be good. Since it's their first iteration of it, I don't think they need to be great. I think a healthy expectation in terms of realistic expectation or realistic comparison would be comparing these chips to the M1 series of chips. And you could say, yeah, from the M1, M1 Pro, M1 Max, and M1 Ultra, like somehow drawing comparisons between those. I know Qualcomm has went out and said that their chips beat M3 chips. Cool. And if that's cool, great. But I'm only hopeful that they are at least in the same ballpark as M1 chips. The last thing that I was concerned about is what products are these chips going to go in? So I'm happy to see that Dell, is creating another. So I'm happy to see that Dell has created a Dell XPS 9345 that will have this chip in it. And I think that'll be a good experience. So we'll see what happens. And I'm super excited for the next couple of months to see what these device manufacturers release. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe. Let me know what you're hopeful for. The whole spiel. I don't know. Leave a comment.